Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Whiteboard. My name is Harshit, and I'm the Director of Business Alliances at WYTLABS. We are a digital agency specializing in SaaS and e-commerce SEO. And my today's special guest is Pascal. He is the founder of Fractional CMO, a service-based company that offers on-demand marketing strategy and execution that helps drive maximum impact and ROI for tech startups. A big welcome to you, Pascal. I'm so happy to host you today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Now, before we dive into fractional CMO, can you please let our viewers know a little bit about you and your professional journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in France, but I moved to the US about 25 years ago. And I've always been in marketing at the intersection of marketing and tech. So I was on the digital agency side for about 12 years, managing large global brands such as L'Oreal and HSBC and all their digital strategy. And about 12 years ago, my journey shifted a little bit. I went to the startup side where I became a CMO for fintech, did that for 2 years, helped them go from Series A to Series B. And then I realized that there was a niche in the market for fractional CMO, essentially. So about 10 years ago, I launched my business and it's been quite successful since then. So I've been working with different founders, CEO of different tech startup, a lot in SaaS lately, but my biggest client right now is a B2C company in the fashion industry. It varies depending on what clients are looking for.
Right. So, Pascal, what really inspired you to start fractional CMO altogether and work with these tech and tech startups?
I think the main reason why was that working with in my first fintech, I realized that I really like the entrepreneurial spirit of young companies and the possibilities and the ability of having a marketing impact, number one. And then number two, I also realized that a lot of those companies that are young, they don't necessarily have the budgets to be able to hire a full-time senior marketer. I put one and one together and realized that fractional CMO was a solution. At the time, 10 years ago, it wasn't very popular. Fractional CFO were somewhat popular, but fractional CMO or CPO or the C were not popular. So I was a little bit of a pioneer and I had to carve out my journey and build my offering and be clear in terms of the value I could provide to my clients. But it's been a fun journey for sure. And the ability of building a business alongside a founder by bringing my marketing expertise is really exciting.
I'm sure. And since you mentioned that budget is one of the issues, what are the other challenges that tech startups typically face when it comes to their marketing? And how do you address those challenges?
Yeah, budget is often a primary concern because we're talking about early stage company. I think that the second and third thing that I see most often is one, the positioning. The positioning of the company is not necessarily aligned to the problem they're solving or to the consumers they're going after. So I help realign that and make sure that we're being very clear as to who we are, what we do, how we do it, and so on and so forth. And then the second is the go-to-market. Like, how do we go to market? What channel should we use? What promotion should we use? Do we do a premium and so on and so forth? And since you work in SaaS, some of the challenges, especially when it comes to pricing and offer, I can bring a tons of value here as well.
Okay. And since you mentioned budget is one of the main primary concerns, so is your process much more affordable? How exactly does that fit in?
Yeah, it varies depending on the need of the client, but after 10 years of experience, I can say that the average assignment is about a day a week. So I spend about a day a week on each client. And I don't take more than 2 to 3 clients at the same time because it takes a lot of mind space to work on one client. And it's very fluid in the relationship, whereas I commit a day a week, but I usually spend a couple hours every day throughout the weeks to get to that. And then I bill on a monthly basis, and I usually ask for a 3 month commitment.
Gotcha. Pascal, are you going solo or do you have a few people working for you in the background?
No, I'm solo, and it's a choice that I made when I left the agency. Whereas at the time, it was J. Walter Thompson, like a gigantic marketing firm based here in New York. And there was too much other staff. And I really wanted to work very closely with the founders and the CEOs and really bring the value that I can bring. And if I don't have the experience, I'm very transparent and I bring my network. So I have a network of designer. I don't know how to design. I have a network of developers. I have a network of social media managers and so on and so forth, content writers.
Yeah.
But they're not employed by my company.
Full
I'm
time.
a solopreneur. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Right. Because I was going through your site and I stumbled across proprietary methodology that you have for helping the entrepreneurs with their discovery as well as amplifying the unique talent and bring a brilliant impact in the business community altogether. So I would love to know about that proprietary methodology. How exactly does that work, please?
Yeah. So the methodology that you see on my website is very generic. But what I realized over the years is that the process varies where depending on where the company is. So if the company is around launch, pre-launch, so seed up to maybe Series A, there's one set of process that I have and clear deliverables that I can bring to the table. Then it's the same when you go to the next stage, which I call the growth stage around Series B, let's say, and then around Series C and D, it's the scale-up stage. But at the core of it is a little bit what I was saying earlier, which is making sure that we align the positioning, the go-to-market, the team, also the marketing channels to the problem we're trying to solve and where we can reach our target customer, essentially. And it's a little bit of a loop where, there's always a starting point. Like the founder has a great idea, he's identified a problem, and he might have an MVP. He might have tested the MVP with a couple of customers. Through that process, he learns that something's not clicking. They're not buying, or they don't understand the method, and so on and so forth. So I use my process to refine the go-to-market and the positioning and the channels as we go. And as you can imagine, the more budget, the more intense that loop goes, and the more in depth it goes as well. When you can bring more resources, when you can develop nice content marketing to support your message, it's all the more powerful.
Gotcha. And what channels do you typically leverage for your clients
Yeah.
for pouring in more traffic and then what typically?
Yeah. So it varies obviously by industry or B2C versus B2B, but there's a little bit of a formula that everything starts with the destination, which is either the website where you're going to capture the leads or turn the customer into clients, or the app. I work on web-driven businesses or app-driven businesses. So that's the starting point. From there, step one is SEO, SEM. This is where you get the best presence and the best return on investment. It can take time in the case of SEO, but it's worth it if you have the patience and you put the right resources behind it. And then slowly but surely, you build around that core. Social media usually comes into play, organic, and then paid social. And then it really depends. If I'm working with a client in cybersecurity, obviously the channels, quote unquote, and what we're going to develop is going to be different than if we're working with a social media app. But there's a foundation, and then there are like big components, like I mentioned, content marketing, event marketing can have a big influence in some cases, PR, depending on how new and interesting your solution is, and so on and so forth. But because I've been on both the agency side and the startup side, I've seen it all in terms of tiny little budget and gigantic budget, like with HSBC or L'Oreal. So I know how to build a funnel, and I know the order in which you build a funnel so that you don't start with TV advertising, obviously, if you don't have a website. I'm oversimplifying, obviously, but I can help a client build that funnel.
That's great. And Pascal, thank you. Basically, leverage so many channels and so many different kind of strategies altogether. So typically, you either take help of your freelance fleet altogether, or you train the in-house member altogether, right?
Also, sometimes I work with agencies.
Sometimes you work with the agency.
Yeah, of course. Like some agencies specialize in SEO, SEM, paid social, and so on and so forth. So if the expertise is not in my network or internal to the client, then and if the budget's here, it makes sense to work with agencies.
Gotcha.
They bring an expertise that is hard to replace. I've been on the agency side, so I know the depth of expertise that exists for certain channel or certain category.
Right. Let's discuss some of the real world examples of success stories where you have made a significant impact. Let's pick tech startup because that's something that you know much and branding and with their go-to marketing strategy altogether.
Yeah, so I can use a very recent example, like a current client I mentioned earlier. The name is models.com. It's not models the shoes, it's models the as in modeling.
Yeah.
So it's a platform for the fashion industry, essentially, that connects anyone that works in fashion with the agencies, the modeling agency, the hairstyling agency, acting agency, and so on. And then the brands, the L'Oreal, the Gucci, and so on and so forth. So that platform has been around for more than 20 years. And when I joined about 8 months ago, they had an amazing foundation of content, like editorial was very strong. They had a small offering, like a membership offering for their viewers, for their visitors. And they had like a somewhat strong offering for the agency. And essentially the mandate for me was to help them monetize the platform better. I started with the membership. So I dig into the data. I try to understand like who were the user segment that were most likely to use the platform or that were using the platform the most. And then we devised a pricing strategy and like a typical SaaS strategy where you have a free plan, like a preferred plan and the premium plan.
Yep.
And we implemented that. And after only 4 months, we doubled revenues.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do it by myself, but I think the platform was great to start with. The value was there. It was just not being exploited.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And on a different scale, the job prior to that was actually during the pandemic. I was SVP marketing at Rocked. Rocked is a e-commerce technology at checkout. And I joined when they were just raising their Series C, helped them go to Series D. And I contributed to doubling their revenue from 80 million ARR to 160 million ARR. So very different scale. I didn't do it by myself. There was a strong team in place, a strong product team, a strong sales team. But what I did is build the marketing team and bring it all together. Really think about, okay, how do we improve our story to the market?
Yeah.
How do we deploy awareness channel? And then how do we funnel all of that through the website, a lead system that makes sense, and then to the sales team for them to convert. So
Oh, that's
yeah, two very extreme example, but with a good success.
yeah. In your experience, what are the common misconceptions or gaps that tech startup founders have about marketing? And how better do you bridge those gaps?
That's a good question. I see two. One is sometimes you have founders that have a good sense for marketing and consumers and messaging and all of this. So they don't think they need a CMO or marketer. And it's all about executing the idea. And sometimes they're right, but sometimes they're wrong, or sometimes they have like blind spots. So that's one that I see not often, but it's common. And the only way to overcome this is to build trust in the relationship and then show them different perspective. Because I've worked in different industries, as I said, B2B, B2C, and very different verticals from fashion to cybersecurity, I can use a real life example of different clients and say, this worked for that. And the challenge is not dissimilar to yours. The category might be, but the challenge is not. So that one challenge that I faced sometimes. And then the other one is when the founder or the founders are product people or tech people and they know that they don't know marketing. So they're happy to have you on board, but they don't know where to start. They don't know, they want to put the cart before the horse and so on and so forth. So you have to help them be somewhat methodical about it and understand that some of it is going to pay off quickly, like the models.com example. Some of it takes time, it takes time and so on and so forth. So lots of education in those cases.
Gotcha. Right. Because you're working with your client's team as well, and that's something core part of the job. Can you share some insights or best practices for building and managing effectively these cross-functional marketing teams, especially for the startups?
Yeah. So they tend to be smaller than on the agency side. When I was on the agency side, I had up to 50 people on my team. And that was actually more challenging because it's a lot of people, number one. And then number two, it's a lot of different disciplines from creative to all the way to analytics. So you have to use different part of your brains to communicate with all these disciplines. So on the tech startup side, the challenge is to do a lot with very little. And the best way to align the team is to talk about the objective, to remind them of the mission of the company, the financial objective, the marketing objective, and have a set of KPI that's easy to understand, that we can track, that we can report on, that we can be proud of, that we can impact, more importantly. KPI driven discussion usually takes the emotion out of the discussion and allows everyone to focus on what's going to have an impact, essentially.
Gotcha. And do you use any project management, task management tool with you or recommend it to your customers?
Yeah, I tend to be allergic to those, but that's because we tend to overuse them on the agency side.
Yeah.
So I go with the flow. If my client's using Trello, I'm going to use Trello. If they use Notion, I'm going to use Notion, but I'm not the one driving. That would be a little bit of a waste of my time to project manage. So I partner with the client to make sure that there's an understanding that I'm a contributor more than a manager.
Yeah.
And I'm tool agnostic. I learn as I go. I'm very curious about new products and new tech. So if there's a better product than Trello, I'll be happy to use it tomorrow, Asana, and so on and so forth. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Even I'm a big fan of Trello. Yeah.
are you?
Yeah. I use many, but
It works.
yeah, definitely. And let me come to this final question to you. What advice would you offer to tech startup founders who are contemplating engaging a fractional CMO but are unsure of the benefit or the process altogether?
Yeah, I think it's about a couple of things. One is building trust. It's on both sides and being very transparent about what you know and what you don't and what you expect or so. And if you don't know what you need or if you don't know what you don't know, just say it and we'll have a discussion. That would be one. Two is because it's somewhat of a new way of working, having a fraction of the time of a person. I think it's important to establish boundaries, milestone, I would say. And oftentimes I recommend or I suggest that we start with a small project. Okay, you want to do this campaign? Let's do this campaign together. See if we enjoy working with each other. If I bring value to you and if the communication is working. So this is my advice, but also there's a reason why you see so many fractional people these days is that it's a nice lifestyle for me. No question. I enjoy going from one challenge to the next, one industry to the next, but it's also a win for everyone. It does work. It's cheaper than hiring a full-time CMO. It's cheaper than hiring a full-time junior team than hiring an agency. And it brings results. And it's in my interest to make the client happy and to show result because that's the only way we're going to continue in our relationship. I think you have to trust that it's growing. The industry is growing because it's working.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, Pascal, I would love to have a quick rapid fire with you. And that's typically that we do in the end. So are you ready for that? Yeah.
So how does it work?
So I'll be asking quick questions and you'll have
Okay.
to
All right, let's try. I'm not good at that, but I'll try.
All right. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received at work?
Hey. I'm not a rapid fire guy.
You know what? This is my wild observation. So whenever I speak to someone which comes from an agency background, they're very quick. And whenever I talk to a CMO of a SaaS company, they take so much time to answer.
Yeah.
And because
Yeah.
you're in the middle ground. So
I'm in between. Yeah. I would say taking the long view was a good advice, especially when you're client facing. So on the agency side, I was client facing. So I was the one solving the problem between the agency and the clients. And sometimes you get into little fights. And no, you have to take the long view. You know, what's good for the client, what's good for the agency, and move forward.
Yeah. Right. What one word do you want people to associate you with?
Smart. I hate that word.
No,
Impactful.
Alright. What was the last Google search?
As Google search, most likely best series on HBO.
Okay. What is not a big deal to most people, but is a torture to you?
Bad grammar or punctuation.
Okay. What is your hidden talent?
Struggle with my French accent.
Okay. And coming to the very last question, what never fails to make you laugh?
I don't know. You say it worked.
Thank you, Pascal. Thank you so much for all the time, all the wisdom that you've shared, and all the information you shared about your business. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you. These were very great questions.